let's talk about noses. Let's talk about noses. Okay, noses, all right? And these noses are small, okay? So let's get a center line here. There's a center line as well over here. And first thing I want to do is, I'm going to show you, and I may have done this before, is let's talk about like drawing it with a man's tie idea, all right? So this would be the glabella, and the third eye, if you wanted to think of it that way. And a man's tie comes out like this, down here. And we get something like that, right? And then think of an upside down cup, okay? An upside down cup. So nostril might be here. Nostril might be over here. And then on top of this, you're going to have the ball. The ball of the nose is going to kind of be in this region. And then we could kind of come down here and start to refine these shapes a little bit. That turns into the nostril. The way I'm drawing that nostril, this is the septum, I believe that's called. The septum comes in here. Nostrils here, and then the wing kind of wraps up around that, you see? And then the dark part of the nose there is really the shadowed area. And then the ball, like if you were going to add shadow for a ball, you see that? A sphere, if you have a sphere and one side is shadowed and the top side is not, it's going to be like this, and you might have a core shadow here. Core shadow means that light is bouncing off the ground and hitting up from underneath. So in some ways, a nose is no difference than that. So you can add a tone underneath all of this, and then your core shadow might fall just like that. You're going to see this effect if you're outside versus you're inside. And of course, the glabella is also in shadow. And we can also have a little bit of shadow on either side of that nose. So look at that. Okay, let's look at our first picture here. So first thing I think you got to ask yourself, is the nose dead center, or if it's slightly off center a little bit? So this bottom picture, the nose is slightly off center. So let's come in here like this. There's our center line. Okay, the glabella up on top. Now look what I've already done here. I've already showed more on this side versus this side. You see this? I've shown more of A than I have B because the nose is a little 3/4. Okay, now his nose has that kind of broken, I don't know if it's a broken area, but you can kind of see it it kind of goes out a little bit and then it comes in. Okay, so here's his tie. There's that basic tie shape. All right, this is going to be, look at that. That right there is right there. You see that? Okay, let's look for the shape of that nostril. This is going to help us draw now the shape of that wing. Look at that wing is coming on the outside there, and inside nose, outside nose. Okay, now check this out. This is important. Look at the height of this wing right there, of the nostril compared to that over there. Look at that. They're almost straight across from each other. So let's see. I'm going to make sure I come over here. All right, look at this nostril. There's that outside there. You see that? Okay. Look at the drop in this tone here. Now, remember what I was saying about reflective light? Look at this. Here's reflective light and here is reflective light. Let me remove that now so you can see what I'm talking about. You see that? So, when I come down here to shade my nose, I'm going to make sure that I'm going to leave a little bit, just a little bit of light. Now this, if you happen to have a kneaded eraser, you might have to take your kneaded eraser and roll it into a point. And then you can literally just kind of like come in here and just pick up some of the color there. Okay, same thing. Let's get this center line. It's almost straight as well. Here's my center line. Now let's come up here and get the glabella. Now look at this. This is really 3/4. You see that? And check this out. Wow, how exciting. All right, so here's my glabella. Look at that. It's really wide over here, okay? In fact, now that I drew that, I'm thinking like, wow, I've really got to make it wide. Okay, now this men's tie is coming down. Look at that, just like this. And it's coming over here. And then it's really cutting in there. Wide on that side. Now, look at this. I'm looking closely here. Here's the inside part of the nose. Got that? Here's the outside part of the wing. Here's this side. This is almost even, you see? These are the things I'm thinking in my head here. So if I'm going to be right here, I'm going to, all right, that's fine. I'm going to make my, oops, went a little too big there. All right, and then my nostril is going to be, okay, so I know that that right there is going to be right over there. So you see how I use that measuring there? So this is going to be here, and then my other nostril is here, but this is coming in like this. I'll tell you, noses tend to look flat until you get some tone on them. This is why if I'm going to be drawing a nose for a portrait and I'm at the early stages, I always like to just add a little bit of tone underneath it. This helps me to kind of like make sure it looks dimensional. Because when you're drawing a portrait, one thing that you don't want to happen is, you know, if it starts looking flat and you're getting farther along, you might get discouraged. You're like, oh, this looks awful. And then all you really need in your picture was just a little bit of value in a couple different areas, and you'll feel a little bit more encouraged by it. So even if you are drawing, you know, a portrait and you're like, you know, have a really strong 3/4, yeah, I will always just drop a little bit of tone underneath the nose there, knowing and that'll just help me like realize something is going deep underneath. All right, let's start with the top one. All right, this is more straight on, but it's still 3/4. It's still a little bit 3/4, okay? So let's see here. It's kind of coming in at this angle here, right? All right, let's draw the tie. So let's see. Look at this side over here. This is almost, watch this now. These are the things look, this is almost, you see that's almost a straight line where this is coming at this angle, you see? Okay, this is that underside of his tie here, and then we're going to get his nostril here. All right, I'm kind of looking at the shape. Double checking my shape here. It's all right. So what's going on over here? Let's see. All right, so we're almost like this. All right, now let me drop in this shadow here, and this is going to help give my nose a little bit more dimension. right? So its nose is coming up here. And I'm just, I'm just adding surface lines to feel this form here. I don't know, sometimes I feel like I'm like pushing clay across my paper, all right? All right, let's move this over here and let's work on this next guy. Okay, now this one is a little bit more challenging here. So let's get the angle right first. So the angle is going to come in like this. That's the angle. And there's the brow line. Look, the brow line's coming in this way. All right, here's the tie. Okay, now look at this. So we've established this up here. It's almost like a boat. Like, remember how we, like, once we establish this direction here, all of these things will be parallel. You might even, it might be even easier here. Here, I was just thinking this, it might be easier on some angles to like, okay, there's my brow line. All right, there's the bottom part of the glabella. There's the angle of the tip of my nose, and there's the base of my nose. It might be easier to get all those down first, and then you kind of come in here and work. Work to start getting these angles right. That might be another way to do it, depending on the situation. And I think that's going to do it for today. All right. See y'all later. Bye-bye. If you do have additional questions, please join our Facebook group. It's totally for free. Post your questions in there. You can direct it toward me, or even down here in the comments below, you can ask a question and I will try and answer it my best. My name's Kurt. I'm a dad who draws. All right. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. Okay. Bye-bye.